Hey friends, welcome to Cameron's Reflections. Today myself and Jill is reflecting on how we got to where we are and how do we deal with things within the context of our relationship, maybe our marriage, everything that we've done so far, even in terms of community and the community that we're involved with. And we're always speaking about how we form community, how do we form relationships, and how do we not divide and separate on certain issues? For us as a couple, I think we've really always faced a sort of a upheaval, if you want to put it that way. Nothing came easy. With nothing coming easy, we learned to actually work things out and to work things together. I guess you want to say together for the better. So myself and Joe, when we got married, I was in the context of really, let's say, the colored community in South Africa. And Joel was not so much. Joel was more on the European side of the world. Yeah, Joel was colonized a little bit earlier than when I was. But anyway, what I'm grateful for when myself and Joel got married was the people that I've connected with. Like I'm gonna mention names like with Gary and Hillary and Sue. And I mention the names because I still value what they've instilled in us through the year of marriage counseling and things that they did and things that they've mentioned that has brought us to the point where we are today within our marriage. Now, with that said, things was crazy for us. Like Joel come home and there's no roof on the house because I'm somewhat a little bit of a crazy character. Like, oh, we're gonna extend the garage by a meter and whoop, there's no roof on the house. So you can imagine Joel comes from a conference and there's no roof on the house, and now we're sleeping like one part of the house is open and there's an opening in the middle of the house, and then myself and Jill. So you can imagine what does that do?
And it rained.
And it rained and the wind blow. The neighbors asked, "What's going on? Do we need shelter?" But we live through it. So I don't know what.
I think, no, like, this is very deep for me. And even sitting here, we can reflect on it. It's like understanding that your spouse has qualities that made you fall in love with him, or your partner, doesn't have to be your spouse. But those very things also can bring lots of heartache and turmoil at the same time. So I think it's the ability to celebrate that we have different strengths and we lean into it. So you are the creative one, you the builder, you will make, and I appreciate that. Maybe I would say that, oh, I really like this, or Cam, I really would like to have this, and you have the ability to create and build it. But it's when that what one does and the other one really feels like not spoken to or kind of dismissed or doing my own thing. I think that's when animosity comes, and it's all about we can, and it's in all relationships, it's not just marriage. I think it's when kids and parents or just friendships, it's like that expectation is made and somehow it is missed, and then someone feels aggrieved, and it's a matter of how you're going to climb over that aggrievedness. And so I was sharing with a friend earlier, like, I'm generally, maybe not with Cam, but with my other extended relationships, I want to be the peacemaker. So I will reach out and say, hey, did I do something wrong? Just hold the peace. And I'm at the point now where I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm literally, I said to Cam earlier, we're going to, you know what, I'm going to pray and I'm going to leave it in the Lord's hands. And if God so wills it, He's going to prompt me when I need to say something, or He's going to allow that person to reach out to you. And I think it's the same in marriage. Although I won't say I'm going to pray and wait for the Lord to tell me to say sorry to Cam when I know in my heart of hearts I need to say it. So yes, it is an adventure, but for us, to next year we to be married for 20 years, um, together probably 21 years, 22 years. I mean, we took about a year and 9 months, a year and a bit before we got married. Um, you kind of realizing that you really have to be each other's friends. But you
Absolutely,
have to
gotta
be
be.
but you also have to be each other's cheerleaders, because there's times when I'm really down and Cam's really high, or when Cam's really down and I've got to be encourager. And there's no competing with each other, which I'm seeing a lot more in people today, like where there's literally the one partner feels aggrieved or afflicted. And so, how can you do this to me? Where we're not looking at that person through even just God's eyes, saying, hey, this person makes a daily sacrifice for us as a family. This person, I mean,
You-
something as stupid as when Cam does the laundry and he hangs it up or takes it off, to say, yo, thank you so much The fact that you did it just means that I didn't have to do it. And I think it starts in the little things.
Correct.
We let little things go. You can thank you for putting petrol into the car, or thank you for getting in from school, or thank you for scheduling that meeting. I think it starts with the little dismissiveness so we don't
To
acknowledge what the other
and
does.
appreciate what the other does, like regularly.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't necessarily.
Yeah,
I
we
think
don't get
we
it.
sometimes get it wrong many
Yeah.
times, but when we do, we try and appreciate one another.
Yeah.
Pardon for what each other does, whether it's doing this, whether it's paying for that, or whatever the case might be, and even for understanding what the other person is trying to achieve, if it makes logical sense. So if you look at myself and Jill, Jill is an internal auditor and accountant by profession. So what is the role of an internal auditor? It's to avoid risk or to mitigate risk, which is an awesome thing. Now, I am now also with an accounting and analytical background, but I'm more of the risk taker. So I will want to take a risk to see how things can be done better, or how we can do something for ourselves, that we can perhaps go and travel or do something different, have an outing. And I'm prepared to take that risk. Sometimes the risk is calculated, sometimes it's calculated to a lesser extent, sometimes it's just trying to see where this can go. So, with the two different opinions or viewpoints, sometimes that can have a clash. But we appreciate each other because one is keeping the other in balance and in check. So I'm encouraging Joel to take a little bit of risk, and Joel is encouraging me to what is the potential issues that can come out of that risk. Is there a is something going to affect our assets? Is it going to affect our relationship, or is it going to affect or impact Eden? And we work things out that way. But we're not really, we try not to go gun one another and press one another down, because in the same
Yeah.
way that can affect one's self
And
confidence.
use team. And so even like something silly as purchases, I've never felt that you've gone crazy when if I mean generally we talk about big things we buy or whatever it is, I will always talk, but I've never felt that need of like I'm wasting your money. Or the fact that something as silly as buying a weed, I'm like, oh no, I know that Cam would have done his homework. He would have, there's a reason why. And I think even stuff like that, when spouses, and I'm talking sometimes when one spouse works, one doesn't, there's this feeling of like it's my money and like I get to decide how to spend stuff or what to do with it. I think for us, we've always been mindful about money in our marriage period, whether it's we work on the platform that it's everyone's money. And so whatever you're buying must actually be for the benefit of the family, or it must be really something that you need.
Correct.
It doesn't always work with a 13-year-old because they don't really understand that. And so that's our newest protege. We need to teach about
Correct.
the
Yeah.
fact that
That is
it
that,
is not for the benefit of one, it must benefit everyone.
in some sense, with a 13-year-old or with having a teenage in the house, that is quite interesting. And I know, Eden, you're watching this video, and you know how I feel about watching. And you know, like I always mention, like Steve Jobs' son didn't have these technologies and things,
Yeah,
and there's a reason behind it.
yeah,
But I also, at the same sense, understand the importance of technology, but not to detract from responsibility and self confidence and things like that. But for myself and Jill, who's worked really, I don't want to almost want to say worked hard, although they say hard work doesn't really get you anywhere, but in some ways it does also get you somewhere, because from what we believe, that is kind of we instructed, we started to do things to work. We just heard in a message yesterday that we need to work,
yeah,
and it's gonna put food on the table. And if you don't work, it's not gonna put food on the table. And in terms of like, I joke and I say like, yo, I'm gonna donate our stuff to the to the animal welfare, because it's things that you work for, and you see our kids doing things that we may not necessarily agree with, but that's maybe not necessarily going to be the reality, but it's just trying to guide our kids. And even kids can become a contentious issue, because one parent may say this and the other parent may say, okay,
yeah,
no, let's do it this way in terms of raising the children. But we try and do these things together in many
yeah,
ways.
yeah. And so we try and model a place where we don't speak like I know Cam's very good with speaking about lack of. We will never say we don't have money. So this, I think, as a couple, be very mindful of the words you use on your kids. So we won't say we don't have money. We'll say we don't have money for that right now, or we'll first go and look at things, look at pricing. So I'm just the money aspect in marriage plays a big role, and I
Yeah.
think for us as a disparity in New Zealand, where I'm the one who's working now, and Camps works for SA, we are ever so mindful of the fact. I mean, things will definitely change for us if we both are NZ dollar earners, but also to really have contentment to know that. And I really had to come to peace with that. It's still a struggle. That where God has placed me now is for the interim, is where I am, and
It's
I'm
where you need to
grateful.
be right
Yeah,
now.
where I need to be. It's challenging, it's rewarding.
In fact, it's your circle of influence.
Yeah, and
Even though the
yeah,
places may think that
yeah,
they the ones influence you, you are placed there by a higher power
yeah,
and has influence wherever we find ourselves. And even
yeah,
sitting right here in the spot now, we have influence over the environment that we are. And how are we going to influence that environment? Is it for the
yeah.
better or for the worse? I guess I don't know.
And I mean, also to have so money is one thing, but also to have a healthy balance of allowing your partner to do what they enjoy. So
Sandflies.
my family enjoys golfing, so Cam spent the morning doing golf this morning. I spent the morning catching up on some admin that I needed to do. I'm still not done yet. I could do some laundry, and so for me as a working mom who works a full day, sometimes I just enjoy the pleasures of just normal stuff of hanging laundry outside, um, making food, baking. Like that's also a way that we show love in marriage. And I find it very strange when people start saying, "No, I don't like cooking. No, I don't like." Because I'm thinking the very thing that you're able to do is because you have a family. And so when we start resenting that, are you resenting the fact that you're married? Are you resenting that you have a family? Yeah, like don't get me wrong, there are days when we don't feel like doing it either. But for the most part, if I don't have a family, I won't have laundry. If I don't have a family, I won't have food to make. If I don't have a job, then like, what is all of it worth? If you literally think that you just want to be and exist with no responsibility to another, it doesn't have to be financial. But to say, listen, this is the unit, this is the role we fulfill. It really changes how you see things. And so for me, I think in the last week or so, God has really challenged me on the fact that stop looking at what you don't have, but look at what is in your hands
Correct.
and what can you be a blessing with. So whether it may be that we have friends who come over and we can share a meal with them, or I have something that I have two of I can give someone of, or there's a colleague at work I can give an encouraging word to. Like I'm starting to think that when you're in a deep funk, when you're not happy with yourself, it's gonna spill into your marriage and relationship.
And you know that
Um,
I was thinking about that um, the other day, or maybe it was this morning. I'm not sure. But self-esteem. How is our self-esteem actually affected by what, by the things that is around us, or how do we view ourselves? Do we value and appreciate who we are, who we designed, and where we are right now? And how does that affect us in what we actually do? So if I've got self-esteem issues, am I gonna press forward in something or in an area to make me feel better? Am I gonna try and belittle the next person so that I feel better, which is a common thing around here, which is called tall poppy syndrome? And am I going to continue down that road? Am I going to am I going to dress in a certain way so that I feel better about myself? What am I actually doing right now that is maybe not who I am, and potentially because I've got a self-esteem issue? And how are we going to actually overcome that if that is the case? But that is why, for me, like, that is why we've got community around us
yeah.
to actually, that's another sandfly. And why I say it's sandflies is because of this. We're sitting right here. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Don't you just love it? Ah, amazing. Um, and I think that's what it is. That if we have self-esteem problems, all our relationships is going to be affected in some way or the other.
That is true. And so I think, like, listening to many friends and acquaintances in the last years of being married, it's pretty evident that when there's a disconnect, or when there's a disheartening, or or someone is aggrieved, it's actually not even to do with what they're actually fighting about. It's a lot deeper and it's a lot more personal. And so sometimes I think you need to really look within yourself and say, because sometimes we call out things in the other person, but it's actually things that you're struggling with. So you will say, oh no, but you're not good at money, you don't know what you're doing, when it's actually a symptom of yourself,
Correct, yeah.
and you're just projecting it, or the very thing that irritates you about that person, you project it on yourself. Um,
Or when
when,
someone says something, it's actually striking a chord with
yeah,
you, or a nerve
yeah.
with something that you're dealing with, and then it blows out of
So,
proportion.
so things as simple as deciding where you're going to go to church, deciding where your kids are going to go to school, deciding, like, That's
Where you gonna
a
live? Country.
that's a us. That is a conversation you need to have, but you really need to know who you are, which is true at campuses. Because if you're gonna come overseas, for example, you bring that same baggage and rubbish with you here.
Absolutely.
Um,
It's gonna get worse, in
and I
fact.
think for me, I mean, we came under the cloud of mommy being ill. That was probably the biggest thing we were not really talking about. We spoke about it, but I mean, in terms of the emotional side of it. And so for me, even today, like, there's a piece I can't explain. Like, there's a piece. We are here, our daughter is at a party, not far from me sitting, safe and weak. And for me, it's like the sweetest part after 19 years. I think we're enjoying our times together now of making these
Correct.
videos.
Yeah.
It's a sweet time of just chatting and being together.
I there. I there.
So you kind of also like just coming to a point where you're content. Yes, there may be many things that we would still like to have and like to do, but that's not going to motivate or change our values in terms of these core values we have as a family, and we're not going to risk that
Absolutely. Like if you
to
think like
chase dreams, wild dreams, or even
yeah,
money. We're not going to do
like
that.
if you think in South Africa, there was 3 cars parked in the property, and I mean it was utes. What they call in New Zealand, they call a pakkie a ute, and we had another car, and now in New Zealand we have 1 car. And the thing is it such a challenge? No, it's actually not, because
No.
if you think like Jill is working pretty much 3 kilometers or 5 kilometers from where we're staying. In fact, she could even walk if she wanted to, and it wouldn't even take that long. It's maybe not even that far. Eden is not far from school. So, and if we wanted another car, what does that actually mean? Why? Why do we actually want another car? I can
Yeah.
hop on my bicycle and I can cycle to where I needed to be. Maybe if I'm playing golf, it's a bit of a challenge. But yeah, so your priorities
Yeah.
changes, and what is important also changes, and one has to be okay with that for the place that you find yourself in now. And I'm not even talking about the financial economic place. I'm talking about the physical space in which you exist. So if you're in a country that everybody's riding bicycles, so you're gonna go buy a car. That's pretty much the idea. You're gonna buy a bicycle because everybody's riding bicycles, nobody's driving cars. So that is kind of, I think, what where we are at now, and we're comfortable with that. In South Africa, when somebody came to me and they said, Cameron, I've got this need and I need this and things like that. And I think this is the same when our businesses started, or how I've started businesses. We started things because out of someone else's need, and in some ways at the sacrifice of ourselves. And then people tend to take advantage of one's generosity
Yeah.
or your ability to help,
Yeah.
and then they take advantage, then they want to start grabbing. And when things go pear-shaped, and even in a family context, like one business was started actually out to help a family member, and that causes difficulty in our relationship. And at the same time, when that business went pear-shaped, I was involved in a motorcycle accident. And I think while it wasn't necessarily the transport business, but the other individual decided they're going to make their business go pear-shaped, and which heavily impacted on financially on the business that myself and Joel were operating.
Yeah, let's actually be honest. He defrauded us. He just didn't pay for
Yes,
months. Let's tell the truth. You
yeah,
were defrauded by a family member,
yes,
willingly and openly,
correct. And
with no intention of repaying a cent to this very day.
to this very day, and
Yeah, that's the truth.
while we have forgiven that particular
Yeah.
individual or that family member,
Yeah.
it's something that we perhaps have never spoken about. But just imagine the pressure that that places on another person's relationship
Yeah.
by someone else's actions.
Yeah.
And even those things is things that you need to deal with. And I revert back to marriage counseling. Marriage counseling may not have addressed that situation specifically, but it addressed the situation. If myself and Joel cannot have a child, what are we going to do? And it made us think in a certain way about difficulties and challenges when they come our way. And that is kind of what has kept myself and Joel going in the way that we address certain situations. I don't know, what is your feeling, if you feel the same way, or
No,
if you feel,
I think that, I mean, so it actually was, yeah, you could call it marriage counseling, but literally these two couples journeyed with us for a full year, and dealing with different parts of marriage conversations with me and Cam. And I mean, subsequently, we've been in many marriage courses, or 2 or 3 with Gary and Lily, which was wonderful. We did catch up with it. But yes, it did prepare us because even from the get going of before we got married, there were challenges already. We were very young. And our families were also not understanding, like the typical colored family. You need to have a stable job, you need to have a house. We had none of that stuff.
You have a call.
And my brilliant youth pastor said, why don't you just grow together and get those things together? Row and
Yeah,
out of, yes, we're still
Rowan.
living. We're still living with that. And it was the best advice he could give us because you know what? We both had nothing coming in, and everything we've amassed today, what we have is God's grace. Um, I like that we're not about stuff, but we are about taking care of what's been entrusted to us. So don't get us wrong, we're not about stuff, but whatever we have, we want to take good care of it, and we kind of instilled it into our 13-year-old as
And the
well.
and the interesting thing is when Rowan spoke to us that night, I think it was at someone's 21st or somebody's wedding,
It was wedding.
and
No, 21st, I
or
think.
21st,
Yeah,
yeah,
21st.
and Rowan was a lawyer, but he was fulfilling the role as a youth pastor at the time. And Rowan said, Cameron, this is the position that I'm in right now, as a lawyer. And that is when I thought, when myself and Jill spoke about it and said, if Rowan could do that, then what are we actually waiting for? Why are we not growing through the difficulties and the challenges together
Yeah.
to grow stronger with one another?
But I also think it's like, it's also a matter of being really, really honest. And I think God allowed us to have those really, really honest conversations before we came to New Zealand. We could talk about really what we feel about our family, and not in a negative sense, but just how we feel about our parents and they're getting older, and what we think about our siblings, and the roles we play. And there was, to a degree, a burden on both of us in the sense of not placed by family, but that burden we felt we were carrying of like, we just want to be there for we were the older siblings in the countries for both parents. So you kind of shouldered that responsibility of just want to make sure they're okay. Please understand, zero expectations from any parent side. Our parents were loving, supportive all the way through. Even my mom, when she was able to, my dad still. But I think you live with that, not speaking about it. And so if you cannot, and for me, I don't think you can have a physical best friend besides your spouse, like as in best friend. Your spouse is your best friend. So that, yes, you're going to have your
In the
girlfriends.
context of a marriage, yeah.
Yeah, well, you can talk about stuff, you can talk, but there's things that I will speak to Cam. He will understand the context, he will understand the people I'm talking about because he's right with me and he does life with me every day. He gets to see me through all seasons. So if you can't come to a place where you look at that person and say, you know what, Cameron, we've seen a lot of stuff. We know we're definitely not the same people we were 19 years ago.
No, definitely not.
In terms of aesthetically, body wise, we've had a few amendments by God's grace to us, but in the sense of maturing as well, we don't think the same, which also used to really annoy, I think, both of us at many times.
Yes.
We don't think the same. But if I said to someone earlier today that Cam is the
Mitigate
dad,
risk taker.
he's the he's the head of the home, and so there are things that Cam has made decisions on that I was entirely comfortable with. And you know what? He's proven over and over again that he's thought about stuff. And even if it does go pear shaped, it hasn't really, to be honest. We are here in New Zealand, it worked out. But it's also coming to that place of trusting and knowing what your partner's strength is. So Cam's strength is X, Y, and Z. Mine maybe is RS, and then allowing that person to operate in that sphere, but to encourage it,
Correct. And
fully
even
encourage it.
and even if something fails, I think we've got the complete wrong idea of failure. If something doesn't work out, you've learned something that no one else has learned
Yeah,
in that situation.
yeah,
Especially if you didn't have a mentor or a guide around you to guide you around
yeah,
something, you've learned something that is invaluable, that is something that you can speak about,
yeah.
or a story that you can write. And that is, for us, I think.
Yeah, and so essentially, can we tell you, your marriage must fail? Because it's only when you're failing in certain avenues. I'm not talking about a complete failure.
Yeah,
I'm
not like
talking
a wreck.
about where things are like in terms of like we missed the boat or there's a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Because that's when you can course direct. I mean, you always telling me about work, and I'm starting to embrace it. If something is wrong at work, sure, okay, cool. Now I know how to fix it. Because how do we celebrate success if it hasn't failed? How
Correct.
do you know if it's going good? Then what do you know if you
You
have a
don't,
good marriage? You don't know because
you
what is your
understand?
comparison?
You have learned nothing here.
And I'm not talking about failing in the sense of like we hate each other. I'm talking about where there's a disconnect or we misunderstand each other, or even when I feel aggrieved, it's being bold and say, "Hey, Cam, you said this. This is how I feel," and maybe he didn't even know his intention was never that, but he
Yeah.
didn't know how I was feeling at the time where I was saying, "Oh, you were kidding about my work," but I actually was very down about work. It actually wasn't the right time to maybe make you a joke about it, even though you know it was a joke, and I understand the context of it. But let me explain to you. This is how I feel. Like I
Correct.
think we spend so much time just trying to assume that you must read my mind.
Yes.
You must understand that you need to whatever I'm going through. Like that's a lot of nonsense.
Yeah,
I don't know
we
where we come on that. You
I
must just know how I feel.
I am still trying to learn how to become a mind reader. Someone that can like look into the brain and see like what's going on, what was the situation in a certain context in the office, at church or wherever.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out how to read that, but I haven't gotten that far to successfully say that I'm able to do that. And I think it's just about being there for each other.
Yeah.
Being there for each other and trying
Yeah.
to understand if you're in a good relationship with one another where you're sharing things,
Hmm.
the next person knows where you are at
Yeah.
and can kind of read the room to know that,
Yeah.
okay, something's up and something's not 100%,
Yeah.
and kind of have an idea of how we can navigate through that and make it better so that tomorrow is a good day for everyone in the context of your working environment, your relationship environment, your community that you're involved
Yeah.
with.
But it's supposed to be your safe space.
Yeah,
Like I don't find myself coming home wanting to run away from home. You literally when we are home, it's like, hey, we together. Even if you're doing this one's like we'll go home now and Cam maybe we'll do some work but we together. Like be wary, like telltale signs that things are not okay is if your spouse is constantly either having people over or wanting to go somewhere else or finding themselves busy. Like that's a telltale sign that something's it might not be you, but there's something that's bothering them. So
correct.
when you spend enough time with someone, you can read the room. I think for Cam, if I must just go all of a sudden really quiet, which I've done in the past, then he knows, okay, no, something's not okay.
Yeah,
Um, I need to just check in with her or for me even when I can't speak to his mom and dad or my dad, then I know I'm missing them. My sisters I can't speak because I just miss them.
yeah,
So these telltale signs that will tell you, and I think it's a constant work and it's a constant pursuing. You must fight to have a decent relationship, whether it's in your marriage, whether it's your friendships. And
correct.
when things are going pear shaped, this is my challenge for myself to really say, Lord, I don't want to do stuff in my own strength. If
Yeah,
I'm not talking about marriage now. If I'm not supposed to have this person in my life in terms of my relationship, will you show me how I need to do this? Because I also think we teach people how to treat us. So if I entertain your for whatever behavior that's bad, for example, and I'm talking about where belittling or it's just something that's negative, you got to speak up and say, like,
yeah,
hey.
this is not okay.
And I think even the tough things, if the one person is doing something that you're really thinking, like, yo, this is really not, be bold and say, listen, I really love you, eh? But I really don't think this is what you're doing is good or healthy for you, be it whatever it may be. Um, to have the boldness, and I think many people don't have that.
And I think people will need to be honest with one another. And honesty is it's gonna win. The truth shall set you free. So if we're not honest with one another or we kind of walking on eggshells around certain aspects, then we've got a problem. Then we're not really in true relationship
Yeah,
with one another. And the quicker a person can get to the point where you say that I'm a human being, I'm gonna fail you, and everyone understands that we're human, we're gonna fail, we're gonna say things that offend, the better. But sometimes that thing that may offend may be actually like striking that chord that I was
yeah,
mentioning earlier. And just to do some introspection, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else, like what is it? Why is that struck a chord with me? And why do I feel the way
yeah,
I feel? Or why am I getting offended about something? But until the point where we're not going to be able to have those honest and real conversations, everything will be surface level, and
even
in,
in your marriage,
even in your marriage,
it will be
and
fake.
you're
Yeah,
not going to be able to create something that is great. People don't create something that is great by themselves. There's an individual, there's individuals around them and a team. The world celebrates individualism is in the sense that this person created this amazing thing, or they this, they that. But that person is actually zero without the team and the people around them who has made them who they are. So everything works in a team context, and that is what society's got to understand. In the context of everything that is happening around us in the world at this very moment in time, I think just imagine myself and Jill are sitting here peaceful, watching people walk down the coastal walkway, watching people in the water surf, walk on the beach, and in another country, there's bombs flying around.
Mm,
Imagine the two different contexts.
mm,
If you take either one of us, if you place that person with his bombs flying around here, they're not going to know what is going on. If you take us and place us in a war torn country because of someone who's creating war, we're not going to know what to do and how to handle the situation because we have not been exposed to that. But in community, we can speak about those things and start understanding.
yeah.
I think of a friend that I have who lives in that type of environment, and we learn. So it's quite a tricky. Relationships are difficult, and it's meant to be difficult to make us stronger and to make us sharper.
But I think you touched on an important point that if you are going to be in a hostile, volatile environment, it's definitely going to rub off on the two of you. And so ask yourself, do I want my home, my workspace, wherever I am, to be volatile, to be hostile? And as people, we have the ability to say, listen, we didn't sign up for that. So if you are finding that that is constantly we find you at, then there is something wrong. And there needs to be a conversation say, hey, we cannot continue like this. Something's got to give, and we need to have that conversation and say, but why is he hostile? It's in you, and it's exactly that. It'll be a series of small offenses that are built up,
Over
and
time.
suddenly it's big. And suddenly the very thing you think you're fighting about, this big thing, actually was because you know what? You never picked up whatever you picked up in the
We
bathroom.
didn't put sugar in the coffee. It can be as small as that. Um,
Yeah.
I think of I think of I'm thinking of Gabe again and the context of the therapist work that he's doing at the moment in California, and I think like the conversations that we had. I think even you chatted to Gabe on a couple of occasions, and it's always about knowing who you are, being authentic, being real,
Mm,
um, loving. What does it mean to love? What does it mean to care? Gabe always used to say like, how do check how do they look after the animals or after their pets? And I think that is an important thing. How does the next person treat their pets?
mm,
Because if they're treating their pets badly, the chances of that they're going to treat another human even in a worse sense
mm.
is a clear indicator. And, and being real and authentic, that is what we got to be. I can't be someone to Stephen and be a different person to Joe. I need to be the same person all the time.
And you do get those couples. Let us not be also confused. You get those couples who will project perfection when they're in company and they just very loving, very caring. They go on romantic dates. And then you hear 2 or 3 months later, oh no, so and so are divorced, they're no longer together.
Yeah,
So be mindful of idolizing other relationships and just work on your
yeah.
own. I fell in the same gap when I was just married. I'm like, oh, they are so romantic. Look at them. They go on. They have date nights. Yeah, it's not real.
Then it doesn't work
It's
out.
not real. And so focus on what works for you. You know what makes your heart sing. You know what makes your partner's heart sing. So you focus on, I think you focus on doing good to each other. So if I
Correct.
know Cam likes chips, we'll make sure there's chips. If I know Cam knows I enjoy biltong, he'll make biltong. So it's like, if I say to Cam, oh, I feel like a nice lamb curry, please will you make some? It tastes different when he makes it. So it's kind of, but that is also celebrating. Like I think if I look at my mom who's passed and my dad who's left behind, he's remembering the good memories. He's remembering the good she did, what
Correct.
she baked, what she made. And I think that's at the end of the day what we should look at and not focus on the one thing that partner does that
That made you
is maybe
crazy.
angry. To kind of think and say like, wow. And I think I stood a bit back in that today. Like, yeah, you're right. We have one car, but our life is so much more simple. It's
Mm.
actually more together because we actually have to speak. And we actually have to talk. And it's humbling because, like I was telling a girlfriend yesterday, now I have to ask, can you please give me a lift? It's amazing how the Lord turns the tables. And so, what's supposed to make you feel like, oh, it makes me feel inferior? It doesn't. It lets me know that I'm in need of relationship
Correct.
because I need that person to help me to get where I need to be. And it's a wholesome place to be. And I think life in SA was more self sufficient. I didn't need anybody. I can do my own thing. I don't need, like,
Yeah, it's different.
it's very different. Where here it's kind of okay. We have one car. Where does the family need to be?
And how
How
we
do we
gonna
make
work
this
that?
work? How do we make this work? Or
But
should I not do that today? Can I do it tomorrow? That kind of thing. We actually have to talk
correct.
and communicate on it.
I just want to reverse you when Joe was speaking about something earlier and I laughed. I was thinking about this thing that I joke with people and I say, yes, you see, they're opening up the door for their partner, for their girlfriend. But the thing is he going to do that when he's married? The chances are that you're not going to do it. So I was just to tell Joe, no, I can't open up the door for you because I can't guarantee that I'm going to do it for the
But
rest
if
of
my
my
dad
life.
said, don't do anything that you know you're not
Yeah,
going to do it for the rest of it.
absolutely. And Joel's dad said that, yeah, if you're not going
Yeah.
to do it for the rest of your life, then don't do it now. Because you're going to set a standard that there's going to be an expectation down the road, and that can also cause animosity and issues.
Yeah, and marriage is not one long romance. Let's also be real. It's a deeper understanding of love and a deeper understanding that challenges are gonna come and it's gonna change. And so for me, even in friendships, you're gonna get adversity where we don't feel the same. And like a friend told me last night, oh, she said, you know what? It's how we get through those adversities where
Mm.
you've been aggrieved and maybe I don't even know. Speak to me and tell me what I've done wrong. And so I either can say, I'm really sorry you felt that way. That's not my intention. And we can move on and we can somehow reconcile and say sorry. But I'm almost at the point now where I'm 43. I don't do well. We don't do the silent game at our house. We don't. We've never done it.
No,
You speak it out, you scream it out, you say what you need to say. So that we can, and also because we want to create a
we
healthy
took that.
environment for Eden.
We took that.
Yeah.
Don't let the sun go down, or don't go sleep with an angry heart or something. We took that literally. We didn't. We tried to sort something out before because we don't know if that next
Yeah.
person is gonna wake up the next morning.
Yeah. So for me, like, it is
So,
hard, but it's
sorry, man,
rewarding as
but I
well.
just have to say this. In New Zealand, there's nothing that can kill you. But you remember that I just said something about the sandfly earlier? Check that out. That is a sandfly. Man, oh man. Sorry, I needed to just share that with you. There's nothing that can kill you here in New Zealand, but there's something that can seriously cause damage to the flesh.
And you need to remember if you've got a kid, that kid is watching the relationship. Not that we're supposed to be putting it on a pedestal, but that should make you mindful about. We learned marriage from our parents, and
Yeah,
they were amazing couples. They had their challenges, um, but everything we do right, we attribute to them.
correct. But
Ken's
even
mom
so,
and dad is still
but
walking
even
with us,
so,
and my
even
dad.
if you were, even if you're someone who may have grown up in a relationship where with
With one parent,
with
yeah,
one parent, or where the parent may be separated,
yeah.
there's not an excuse
Oh, you would
to.
have still learned from them.
You'd have still
Yeah,
learned from them, and you'd have learned the things that you want to do
yeah,
and the things that you don't want to do. The same way
yeah.
for another kid whose parents are together till the day
Or
they
raised
die,
not by your parents.
or raised
Yeah,
not by your parents.
yeah,
These things that you will model, and that you will do and that you don't want to do.
yeah,
But there's also a choice that you have in the
yeah.
whole situation. You got a choice to go the wrong way. You got a choice to go the right way. And what that right way is, that's not difficult to understand. You know what is right and what is wrong. There's no if this then that. It's pretty much black and white uh, in the society that we live in today.
Yeah, and I think as you get older and your kids get older, I mean, we think of friends that got kids who are older. You can see that level of concern doesn't change when they don't make the wisest decisions for themselves. And so the consistency thing is that we grow old together.
Correct.
We're not going to grow. Eden will leave and we'll live our own life. And so if we can work on us now, we're just going to be sweeter as we get older.
Correct.
Um, a deeper understanding. And
Uh,
especially when things are rough, you've got to be supportive. You cannot be if the one is down, then you want to be 10 times more down. No, that's not the competition we have.
No,
You
because
kind of,
that's gonna bring everybody down, further down into the gutter.
yeah,
You need to be positive, even if you're feeling down and the next person is, try and lift that bar. Lift that
yeah,
bar, do something that can just break that ice.
yeah,
Because if you take it in the context of where we are, that somebody that has immigrated to another country, you hear pretty much on your own. Yes, you've got a community around you, but sometimes others are also going through difficult things.
mm,
But but is you need to be able to lift each other up so that you can encourage those
yeah,
around you in your community. And that is what we need to be there for. And if we're going through something, we must be able to be in a situation within the community that we find ourselves to be able to share that. And that is the issue that I've maybe somewhat got with church as well. Um, because church is a community, yes, great, awesome, it's amazing, sing Gumbaya on a Sunday. But the question is that actually the community? So is the church the place where I'm sharing meals together? Am I sharing deeply? Am I actually connecting with other people? Am I doing life with one another? Do they know my struggles? Do they know my pain points, my difficulties, the way myself and Jill knows it in our marriage? But if you think of going back to the book of Acts which we were sharing, people were in one another's home sharing meals together. They knew what one another needed. Hence, people sold their possessions so that no one lacked. In today's context, we look at churches and churches are building these amazing multi-million-dollar places, but these people are going hungry within that very four walls of the church. So, is that community, or are you finding community within that community? It's just various things, but we need to have a group of people that supports you and that is around you at all times, even if you got a strong marriage.
yeah. And I think what underpins every relationship, and that even one we have with Christ, is there needs to be a level of honesty, there needs to be a level of integrity, and there needs to be a level of respect.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't have those three, even in your marriage or in any, then just it's not gonna work.
No.
um, Honesty in the sense of speaking truthfully in love if something is wrong, or honestly saying, wow, you're amazing, look what you've achieved, look what you've done. That's honesty. Integrity is even when that person's not around to still speak well of you when you're not close by. And even if you know, maybe if I
Yeah.
do go speak to a friend and say, oh, I'm going through this with Cam, to even whatever you're portraying that you need help with, to still put that
Yeah.
person in a proper position where it doesn't look like you're under saying, oh, I've got a challenge with Cam. How do you think I should address it? I mean, I've done it with Eden. I've gone to a friend and said, hey, we've got a challenge with Eden. How do we work with it in the context where you're still holding that person in honor? I'm not devaluing or saying that they're horrible. And the respect is then knowing that I'm really going to respect you as a person, so I'm going to pursue the reparation or repairing of whatever is not okay.
Mm.
Like I want to get to a place where we can be restored and
Restoration. Yeah.
yeah, restoration to be reconciled. And I think that's the fundamentals of relationships. Like it's not easy, it's hard. And today is a good day. We're not fighting. Today is a good day. There's nothing that's aggrieved us. Tomorrow we might be different. Maybe there's something that irritates. But I think to
And the funny thing is, you're saying that, and it's such a, it can be something that is not even in the context of our relationship. It could be something external to the relationship that myself, I can be aggrieved about something.
yeah,
It could be whatever. It could be, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to solve this particular problem and I'm struggling with it. And my mind is focused and so concentrated in that space that Joel could ask me, what do you want for supper? And I'm like, hey, I don't have time now. My brain is working overtime. I mean, that is maybe a silly example, but it could be just like little things like that that could flare one another up. But I think for us, like if you want to kind of come to some form of a conclusion, it's just about being in constant communication with one another. I think
yeah,
being vulnerable
yeah,
and being willing to share, and knowing that a failure is not really a failure, but it's actually a learning curve, and you actually grow stronger in facing a difficult challenge. You know, in New Zealand, there's these things. Oh man, there's those things that people ride in mobility scooters, which is so fascinating. That you see people riding these mobility scooters all around, but it's just so that the elderly or those that cannot do this 13-kilometer walkway that they're able to do it
Mm.
by another means, and everybody just respects that there's an elderly person or somebody who's got issues with walking,
Mm.
that they're able to do this. There's people cycling and people walking, and everybody's just doing it on the same walkway, respecting one another's space and the space that they need to commute, but they're all getting along with one another. And in that same way, we need to do the same in our relationships.
Mm.
So I don't know if you have a few
I
final
think
thoughts.
my final thoughts is read the room. Read the room wherever you find yourself. So when you need to say something that may be contentious, first check the vibe. First see what that person's busy with. Don't just interject and start with some maybe deep conversation.
Mm.
Read the room first. Just say, hey, can we talk about this later? Or, oh, I noticed this. Are you okay? I think that for me is what I'm learning is to read the room, be gentle in my approach, and also then to ask God for wisdom when the right timing is.
Yeah,
The natural thing is to have things I want to sort right now. But
yeah,
like Cam says, Cam could be in the middle of something very intricate with his work. And I'm coming just to ask a dumb question and then I get angry because he's not speaking to me nicely, for example. Read the
and
room and just, yeah, and be mature about it. Like, don't start stuff at inappropriate times. We cannot have these heart to hearts 10 o'clock at night when we have to go to bed.
no,
Be wise about when you want to have discussions about things that maybe are bothering you, or maybe you must write it down or put it in the message and say, hey, this is what are my thoughts, so can we talk about this later?
correct.
Giving that person time to also reflect on what you've been asking or what you're feeling. I think that's what I can learn from this conversation, just to be mindful.
And I think to add to what Joel says, be the first to listen
Yeah,
and the last to speak.
yeah,
I think that is a good
yeah,
principle because then
yeah,
you've heard what the person has to say and you had some time to process,
yeah.
and then you may have something to add to the conversation. I think that's something that we can do. So from myself and Joel, thank you so much for listening. Peace. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.
Once again, on a different angle of Fitzroy Beach, on a sunny day in the start of winter. Today is not too hot and it's not too cold, even in the shade. Normally sometimes in the shade it's like extremely cold, but today is like perfect.